Cowboys trade talks are escalating as we have a brand new target that has just been revealed by an NFL insider. We'll tell you about this guy and why he would be a good fit for the Dallas Cowboys, and cheap at that. Welcome into Cowboys Digest, everybody. I'm Jace Andrews. I appreciate you tuning in to today's show. And before we get going, I want to make sure that if you are not a part of the Cowboys Digest community, you go down there and hit that subscribe button. It's 100% free. Let's talk about a new report that we got today talking about the Dallas Cowboys having a clear possible trade partner for cornerback help. Now, I bet you're probably sitting here wondering, okay, Jace, cornerback help, that's an interesting thing for the Dallas Cowboys to need because at the beginning of the season, the depth was there at cornerback, or at least the thought was there. But since then, it hasn't really looked that way. DaRon Bland has once again had some injury problems. Same can be said, I know it was illnesses, but same can be said for Trevon Diggs. Kaiir Elam has, I'm going to be honest, has not looked good. I truly think he is one of the worst cornerbacks in the NFL this year. And that's backed up by stats. The Dallas Cowboys this season have let up a ton of yards. They let up the most passing yards per game at 297.3. And in terms of yards per game, they allow over 420 yards, which it's just not a good situation for the Dallas Cowboys. So if they're going to make a trade, I think it's very obvious that the defensive part of the ball is where they need to look. Having that being said, I think cornerback is a good spot. I think this would be something that could help them given the injury issues they have. And if you think about this cornerback room, it's an interesting slot right now. Now, Malik Hooker is going to be out, so Wanya Thomas is going to have to pop into that free safety role, which again is a tough blow for your secondary. Your cornerbacks, at least as of right now, are as healthy as they've been all year, besides having Siobhan Revel Jr., their third-round pick out of Eastern Carolina. But at the same time, Kaiir Elam has looked better late. You're facing a Jets team that is not exactly the greatest passing, thanks to, I just don't think that, Garrett Wilson is a great receiver, but Justin Fields is not the best quarterback in my mind. DaRon Bland is back. It seems like he's going to be playing at a full-time rate this week, hopefully. Trevon Diggs, I don't know if he's going to play, especially after comments that was stated today. But either way, besides the point, their cornerback depth is at an interesting slot for a couple of different reasons. So, with that being said, they talk about a trade target, and that trade target is going to be Woolen. But let's get into it here and talk about it from a report perspective. Danya Sharma of Sporting News says, quote, Dallas's starters in the secondary, Trevon Diggs, DaRon Bland, and Kaiir Elam, have all been incredibly underwhelming to begin the season, and the depth in the cornerback room is also lackluster. The Cowboys have also allowed the most total yards in the entire NFL at 1,189. That is a lot of yards. Through 3-4 games, that is a ton of yards. Now, have they been able to do some good things? I mean, yes, they scored that amount, but I think the thing that I look to is the Cowboys offense seems to be clicking more and more each week. The Bears game, I think, was just a conundrum in a lot of ways. It didn't look good, and I don't really have a statement as to why that would, but their defense is where they need help at. There's a couple of cornerbacks on the market, but not anything that stands out, and that's where we go to the official target. Quote, there aren't any cornerbacks on the market who could be game changers, but the best possible option for the Cowboys is Seattle Seahawks veteran Woolen. Now, if you remember him back in 2022, he was a fantastic rookie. He had 6 interceptions, was the talk of the town in the NFL, but he hasn't exactly done the greatest since then. And they're going to have some returning cornerbacks in the room in Seattle. It seems like it might be the time for Woolen to get traded. Quote, with Seahawks star cornerback Devon Witherspoon returning on Thursday, teams are monitoring Pro Bowl cornerback Woolen as a possible trade target by the deadline, sources tell the insiders. That coming from Ian Rapaport. He continues on to say Woolen's playing time has diminished, and in a contract year, teams believe he could be available. I think this is a good trade. So I'm going to show you his stats in just a second, but I want to ask you the question, would you make the trade for Woolen? Type T for trade if you're making the trade. Type P for pass. There's going to be an ad here in a second, so go down there and type whatever it is while the ad is playing. Come back up. We'll be right back here. I think it's a T for trade, personally. I'm going to show you his stats. We're going to talk about why I believe that, but I just can't help but look at these passing yards per game that we're allowing and the total yards per game that we're allowing and not think, man, our offense is really good for us to be legit 1-2-2 or 1-2-1, whatever it is. That should not be our record. It should not be that way. But instead, that's what it is. And, in some light, you're very easily could be 0-2-2 or 0-2 and 0-2 or 0-3-1. I mean, there's a couple of different plays in that Giants game. It goes differently. You're in a different situation right now. But adding a cornerback could really help that. Now, Woolen, as I mentioned, this year hasn't been to the stature of level. He's also not playing as much. 4 games played, 14 total tackles in this season with 2 assists, nothing in the interception rate, which is weird because, I know it's 4 games into the season, so there's time, but he had 3 interceptions last year, 2 interceptions in 2023, and in 2022, you have 6 interceptions. Now, the one concern that I think you could see happening and probably talk about is that you have 2 ball-hawking cornerbacks in Trevon Diggs and DaRon Bland. Woolen kind of fits that maestro as well, as he is going to be a ball-hawking cornerback. He's going to go out and make those types of plays. So in some ways, you're getting someone who's similar to the way that the Cowboys have played their defense in the past, but do you want somebody to change up the mojo maybe might be the question that we sit here and ask ourselves. Speaking of Tariq Woolen, though, I do kind of want to talk about why this would be a good thing. So obviously this year, not too much going on. He's still 26 years old, though, just in 4 games, 12 tackles. We know the interceptions are potentially there for him. I think that he fits the way the Cowboys are looking at it. And I really do think that the biggest reason that I'm going to put out there to trade for him is he's on a contract year. The Seahawks are not going to play him. And I really don't see that, I think that they could easily get him for cheap. And that's exactly what the report says here. DaRon Sharma of Sporting News saying, quote, Woolen is off to a rough start to the season, and with him being on the final year of his deal, Seattle could look to move the veteran defensive back now instead of losing him for nothing in the spring. That's something to monitor here. As we go into these trade deadline talks and, getting closer to what the Cowboys need to do at the trade deadline, I know it's still a bit away, but something to talk about. You have to look at teams that are having guys on contract years and the team doesn't need them, or teams that aren't doing well and have guys on contract years. That's where you're going to make your value, especially for a Cowboys team that, if you ask Jerry Jones, this guy just continues to do some crazy things. But if you ask Jerry, he's going to say this is a playoff team. I believe you need to make some moves to make this a playoff team. I think this can be one. But this guy has made some crazy comments, and I really do think that if a move or two can be made, we can be in that playoff situation. I think Woolen's a good piece. You have a guy who fits your vibe, fits the way that the Cowboys have run their defense, and it shouldn't be that hard to acquire him. And that's where we go to the final piece of the report. DaRon Sharma saying, quote, additionally, Woolen should be cheap to acquire, so Dallas wouldn't have to give up premium draft capital to add the UTSA product, which is my final reason. He is a guy from Texas.
Dallas, I am.
You get to see that animation again, so that's cool. But it's definitely something to note that I do think that this is a good move. I think it's a cheap move. And for a guy who has high upside and somebody that can help your cornerback room, I think especially since, the practice window opened or could have opened this week for Siobhan Rivel Jr. It didn't. I think that has to start the question of what do we do in this cornerback room and the secondary room in general, considering how much this thing is injured. So hopefully we get something. I think that Jerry knows that he's going to have to make some moves. He said it when he traded away Micah Parsons. Maybe we use these first-round picks. And I don't think he needs to use the first-round picks, to be honest. I think right now it's about getting smaller pieces on the defensive side because I like the way the defensive line is set up. I know it hasn't looked amazing, but I like James Houston. I like Jadeveon Clowney, but I think there's more work to be done on the secondary side of things because the linebackers have been less than impressive, but they've been, usable. The secondary, though, without Malik Hooker and the way that the cornerbacks have been playing, I think that's where you need to make the move. So let me know in the comment section what you think. Is this a trade you'd like to see? Is this something that you would think that, I don't know about that? I want you to let me know down in the comment section and kind of tell me your thoughts here as what the Cowboys should do in terms of trade managing here coming up in the next month or so, making this team a playoff team. I truly believe it can be a playoff team. I know they're 1-2-1, but I think this can be a playoff team. They just need to go out and make some right moves, and that's ultimately what Jerry, as the GM and owner, has got to do. And I'm not going to say he hasn't done it in the past, but it's not been an easy ride for him. Let's just say that. So That's all I got for you here today on Cowboys Digest. We appreciate you watching, and for now, we'll say peace out, guys.